Shapiro's rap debut. And his notorious disgust for the Barbie movie's inclusion of a trans woman. I, Aaron, am going to give you all, for free, the most unhinged interpretation of the Barbie movie, which is almost as unhinged as my Mean Girls interpretation of that movie. Okay, so here's the interpretation. Ryan Gosling's Ken. His whole journey is an exploration of gender identity, in that Barbies and Kens can be thought of as two different genders and their roles in society as gender roles. So, like, the patriarchy for Ken is actually just an exploration of the Barbie gender and Barbie gender roles. And by the time, like, Margot's Barbie gets to him and he's like, I really thought it was gonna be something else and I don't like it, is Ken realizing, like, that he's just Ken.
And Ken is a gender.
And his, like, exploration into the Barbie gender was fun and informative, but now he's more confident in his gender identity as a Ken.
I love that.
It's flimsy, but so are most of my unhinged theories. I'll get one thing and I'll be like, I can make a theory out of this. So we are going to talk about the Barbie movie, thanks to Mr. Koifish, but welcome to the Feminine Byte with your hosts, Aaron and Emily, and Echo is also here, sat precariously next to our microphone. And we are here to talk to you about unfunny men.
And how many of them there are.
Oh, jeez.
So, do we want to start
with Mr. Doormat Rifle?
Yeah. You mean my sleep paralysis demon in human form?
Okay. And there goes the microphone. Thank you, Echo.
Echo.
When I brought this idea up to Emily to talk about the Crimson Chin, we push it off because, like, I just kind of had a bit of a depresso in December, as one does in December, and it kind of got pushed off, and it was great. Because I never would have imagined that the end of 2023 and the beginning of 2024 really ushered in a new era where male comedians are doing jokes about women and they crash and burn, not because they are offensive, but because they're just not funny. You can market yourself as an offensive comic. You cannot market yourself as an unfunny one, which is really unfortunate for Mr. Plastic Surgery Chin and the koi fish who follows in his footsteps.
Oh. I tried to come up with as many names as I'm sure you have. I don't think I accomplished that.
I came up with like 2 or 3 that I'll use throughout. The only one I really got for Joe Coy is the koi fish.
The one that I made for Joe Coy that is my favorite is the one that I wrote for Joe Coy that is my favorite is Pitbull from the Back Rooms.
Oh my god, there is a video of Jesse Cox, not Jesse Cox, there's a video of Jesse Cox playing that with his friends, and there is one guy who just looks like Pitbull, so they all picked him, so it looks like it's just a bunch of Pitbulls going through the back rooms, and the entire time they're like, Mr. Worldwide, are you here? Mr. Worldwide, where did you go?
I also had Filipino Mr. Clean. My favorite one for the Rifleman is Botox Bill. I think I'm gonna keep on with Botox Bill.
Okay, so this is one thing that I want to just get right out of the bag, right? This is my question as a white person to other white people mostly. And it has to just do with representation as a whole. Obviously, we're going to be talking about a lot of about representation today because we are talking about, like, the way men joke about women. So I just want to get this question right at the bag. Dear white people who defend, like, racist caricatures and, like, bad representation. I should specify. I am addressing a specific kind of white person, not white people in general. So, for those individuals, if this sounds like you, why is it when you want to represent a group different from you, you always choose their worst faces, their ugliest sides, their darkest moments, or the parts that get co-opted into exasperating stereotypes? Why is the obsession with always representing black individuals in gangs when you're not saying anything about gang culture? Why is your queer representation this overzealous social justice warrior who's just a man hater when you're not saying anything about men? Why is your Asian representation like a socially inept math nerd when you're not trying to say anything about education? When you cry and whine at the kids' table during Thanksgiving about how you can't say anything anymore because everyone is so offended? Why is it that you always want to say something cruel on the guise that there's a kernel of truth to it? Because here's the thing, I'm not a mathematical genius. When my D&D players do puzzles, they have to ask me to make sure I did my math right. But statistically, your commentary about these groups should even out to about 50% good things or 50% negative things. But that's not what we're seeing. It's almost always negative and rarely positive, which tells me no, your backwater joke that you fished out of the fucking brackish swamp of a bygone boondock isn't dark or ironic or secretly genius. You just want to say mean things without consequences and stop pretending that it's anything beyond that. Because statistically, you should have nice things to say about black people.
Yeah.
That is my question. That is my question when we are talking about representation and you're like, well, it's just a joke and it's just a thing. Why is it cruel things about women? Why is it always belittling women? Why is there not a single uplifting woman joke? Statistically there should be. Statistically there should, but it's not. Which means it's fixed. Reference to our Hunger Games fucking video. Nothing is real, everything is fixed. That is the thing I just wanted to get out in the front when people are gonna tell us that we are overzealous feminists who are taking things too seriously. I wanted that to be right out in the beginning.
Yes. Period. Snaps. Echo, do not eat chocolate.
I don't think there's any chocolate in there anymore.
Okay.
There are metal poles in there, so she shouldn't eat those, but...
Do not eat metal poles. This goes for cats and all of our listeners. Do not eat metal poles.
Oh, jeez. Okay. So Matt Rife, Mr. Doormat,
Botox Bill,
his weapon of choice. I can't say that, I'm gonna have to bleep his name. He literally takes people to court.
Why?
Because he doesn't like that people are talking bad about him.
Well then, shoot people in the street? We might have to cut this whole conversation if we get a lawsuit.
No, we'll just bleep his name, and then people are just gonna be like, who shot someone in the street? And maybe it'll show up. If you know, you know. Anyways.
And that's the tea on that, sis.
So, Mr. Matthew Stephen Rife. That is his full legal name.
He is one initial away from his initials being MRSA. Sorry.
What is that?
It's a disease I don't know that much about. But anyway.
So this man he's a comic, obviously. I mean, pretty much everyone kind of knows who Matt Rife is at this point, but he is a comic. He is best known for his wit. He's really good at crowd work, and I think he hates the fact that he is known as a crowd work comedian because, like, a lot of comics don't really have a lot of love for crowd work comedians.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, everyone also didn't like gimmick comedians either. Like, Bo Burnham is absolutely a gimmick comedian, and people think that that's, like, makes him a lesser comic. So, like, dear Matt Rife, I know you're not listening, but you being just a crowd work comedian is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Lean into what you're good at. Because we've seen what happens when you don't.
Yes. No, he was a really good crowd work comedian, and like when you think about, I mean, I keep toying with the idea of starting stand up.
Yeah.
But I've also been saying that for like almost a year now, probably.
Yeah.
That like that was like one of the things that I was really worried about is because Matt Rife kind of set the tone, especially for comedians on TikTok,
Yeah.
to be solely crowd work. And that was terrifying to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's so freaking scary.
Yeah, there was a comedian. I don't remember who it was, but they were like something I think that because crowd work videos go viral, what we're going to be seeing is a lot of comedians only doing crowd work because it's the thing that gets them viral on TikTok. And ever since they said that, I've not been able to unsee it. Every time I see a comedian doing crowd work, I'm like, you're just trying to go viral on TikTok, aren't you?
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's like Matt Rife's fault. I think people like the idea of like the improv and the charisma and wit it takes to be an improv comedian. And I think also people like heckling. Hecklers are at every stand up, and like crowd work is like an invitation to heckle, pretty much.
Yeah.
And get roasted by the comedian. People also like roasting sessions. Like people also like that. It's like the cruelest part of comedy and like the cruelest part of entertainment. But like people like watching things burn and people get made fun of and people get laughed at and fall and like all of that stuff. People just like it, you know.
Yeah. It's just like I don't know. It seems weird when that's your only skill set.
Yeah.
That you receive a Netflix special where you can't do that.
Yeah, it's like that's my favorite comedian. I don't actually know his name because I'm bad at reading TikTok names, but he's basically just like the current events. He's just like this comic that like whenever current events happen, I get a video from him talking about it at a stand up club, and it's just funny.
Mm-hmm.
When Trump went to prison or when Trump got indicted or whatever, he was like, you guys all realize that like they're gonna put his mugshot on a t-shirt and sell it, and then the week after, that's exactly what the Trump Foundation did, and the comic came back and was like, who was right? Who was right? Me. I was like, God, this is how I want my news and events just told through this man. I'll have to link on who it is. I think the last name is Johnson. I just don't know his first name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't know. I feel like when you, as somebody who has watched very exclusive Netflix specials, and by exclusive I mean like I can name like 4 or 5 comedians on Netflix's little thing off the top of my head, not all of them.
Yeah.
It's like it's weird to see Matt Rife climb up so quickly just to absolutely bomb.
Yeah.
It's you don't get a Netflix special just because you're famous on TikTok.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like ugh, it felt so weird to me.
Yeah. Another thing we need to do, ladies. Listen up. We gotta stop dignifying these jokes with a word as prestigious as offensive. Because offensive is marketable. Offensive gives people an opening to debate. When you say it's just not funny, people can only dig in so much before they give up. They might say, wow, you think it's not funny because you're so offended easily. And you could be like, no, you just didn't find it funny. Mm-hmm. And just keep repeating that and they'll give up. Do not dignify these men with offensive. Bring them down a notch. Mm-hmm. Tell them that it's just not funny. Because then they'll just stop. Because, like, that's, like, the whole thing with comedy is that, like, once you offend someone, you're like, I'm just an offensive comic. And it's like, no, you're just not funny.
Not funny!
What is that from?
It's from a John Mulaney bit.
I was saying, is that a John Mulaney bit?
It's when he's talking about his time working at SNL where he is like um he's working with Mick Jagger, and Mick Jagger just says like,
Not
yes, no. One time Mick Jagger told me, not funny. So yeah,
yeah.
I'm a John Mulaney encyclopedia. Um. Oh, but speaking of John Mulaney, and I am not saying that John Mulaney is not funny. I am. If John Mulaney has 0 fans, I am dead. Okay. But I went to go see John Mulaney's new tour, John Mulaney in concert, and I can't remember who his opener was. I can't remember his name in the slightest. But he was really good at hooking us, and then was like, got us to laugh a little bit about like just like some Milwaukee based humor. Um but then he starts talking about how he used to be a teacher, and how he was like, oh, like, I used to be a teacher, and I really think that, like, kids really deserve to get hit sometimes.
Oh
And
my
he
god.
starts going on this, like, whole rant about how he, like, hates kids. He makes a joke about pepper spraying a kid in the face. He makes a joke about this little girl called him gay at a poetry workshop for kids, and how he wanted to, like, slice her open and shove, like, Takis in her stomach.
No.
Yeah. And that completely.
Man, fuck that guy.
Yeah, I know. It completely lost me. And, like, I think the audience, I couldn't tell if the audience was like,
Awkward laughing or.
yeah, like, I couldn't tell if it was pity laughs or if they were genuinely laughing. But I sat there, like, stone facing the entire rest of the set. Because you lost me. You can't. There are other ways to make jokes about how kids suck instead of, you know, saying to a crowd full of thousands of people that you want to knife a child.
Especially considering, like, how dangerous. The Republicans, you want to give this man a gun? This is the kind of people you want to hand a gun to?
Yeah.
Like,
Right?
and I get some teachers get very exasperated by children and they don't like working with them, especially like the children in this younger generation are just struggling to be social because it's this combination platter of like millennials who become their parents and like don't want to upset their child, so they like absolutely coddle them. So you have like this huge influx of like overly coddled children because these millennials had such bad childhoods that they think that like if they are more affectionate with their children and more agreeable to their children, then it'll turn out better. But they like overcorrect and accidentally coddle them.
Yes. 100%.
And it's like sad, right? Like, every like all parents pretty much generally just kind of suck. Like the way that we parent is horrendous. We are terrible at parenting. Like we're terrible at it, and it's usually because adults don't have a lot of empathy for their children, or they have too much empathy for their children and they don't want to upset their children. And by the time you get to that, the children don't want to do anything. And the other thing, which is not the parents' fault, like it's not just millennials who accidentally over coddle their children, right? Because you can only coddle them so much, right? The schools and the no child left behind program basically means that they only care about test scores and you can't fail a grade. You can't. They will still bump you up. Like when I was a kid, I was terrified of getting held back.
Yeah.
Like that was like the one thing that keeps you going to school is that it's such a social faux pas and really embarrassing to be held back. And like you know, in terms of like using social peer pressure and embarrassment as a method of as a method of like motivation, that is a relatively harmless one. Where like you only get held back, like being held back is the consequences of your own actions, and that sort of embarrassment is generated by yourself. It's not like someone is teasing you or hitting you or beating you or anything like that. It's not someone that's intentionally causing you pain. If you get held back, it is usually entirely your fault.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, back then there might be some sort of other issues because we weren't as good at helping kids with that might need extra needs. So like there could be some kids that get held back because the system's just set up against them.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, it's I get it, and that's why like our school system is just like gone to shit, and it's because like, you know, how many times do I hear, you know, kids who have not turned in a single piece of work at all,
Yeah.
and that have like 10% in their classes and they don't care. Like another thing is that, like, you know, with the Republicans trying to like make education, like they're trying to dismantle the public school system. Like they're pretending that they're not to, but the Republican Party is absolutely trying to dismantle the public school system so that way they can control the masses better. That's the most conspiracy sounding shit that I ever said, but it is in fact true, which is this craziest part, right? So, you know, they're not really trying to do anything to make these schools better. You're taking away everything. You know, schools are slowly getting stripped to just being about math and English.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. And that's it's bad. It's bad.
Yeah.
So, like, I get it. I get being frustrated with kids. But like you also have to understand the mass trauma that the millennial generation has from their awful parents, because their parents all have fucking lead poisoning and half of them are narcissists characterized like the boomer generation is called the me generation. The boomers are characterized by narcissism.
Mm-hmm.
So like you have to, so like, you know, if your problem is coddled children that have no wanton for like consequences or anything like that, the correction is literally holding them back,
Mm-hmm.
giving them detentions. You know, and if they genuinely don't care and they like take the detentions and they get held back and they just don't care, blah blah blah, let them. There's only like, this is the cruelest thing that I will ever say. There is only so much you can do for a child before you just have to let them fail and reap their own consequences.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a genuine child that gets held back every single year, doesn't turn anything in, and then eventually drops out of school because of it, the teachers did not fail. This child did not want to be taught, and they just weren't playing ball. And I hate that these teachers are kind of forced to try and play ball with kids who know that if they do nothing, they'll still get a pass. We are way off topic, but that's fine.
That's fine.
I'm here to say that I agree with you being like, dude, you need to calm down.
Yeah. It was a weird choice.
Teachers who like do stand up and then like weirdly complain about kids, like some teachers are fine.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some other teachers where I'm like, is this appropriate?
There was a teacher comic that I saw on TikTok that was just like, yeah, sometimes my friends ask me, like, what's it like to teach high school English? And it's just like, you know, have you ever tried to organize a book club for over 100 people when nobody wants to read? That's funny.
Yeah, that's funny.
I loved her. But when you're actively telling me that you were in charge of children and had like these thoughts, intrusive or not, of wanting to knife them,
yeah.
No, sir. No, thank you. So I was like kind of disappointed by that, because it was like I look up to John Mulaney, you know, as kind of a comedic inspiration for me.
Yeah.
And it's like, why'd you choose this guy, John? And it's like a couple of years ago when he had Dave Chappelle open for him. I'm like, John, come on.
Pick a better.
And like, people try to cancel John Mulaney for that, but like, why are we not also canceling Dave Chappelle? Dave Chappelle still actively has a career. He just released a new special this year.
Yeah.
Like, I could go into a whole tangent about it, but it's like, I understand why people were upset with John Mulaney about that choice.
Yeah.
I'm upset about that choice.
Yeah.
But I'm also more upset about how Dave Chappelle still has a career. I just...
Fuck that man.
Fuck that guy. I also do have a very funny joke that I thought up for myself regarding my relationship, my parasocial relationship to John Mulaney, but that's for another episode.
Okay.
That's for a more feral episode. Anyway.
Some of these comics just think if they can just say the most ludicrous, violent things, and this, I guess, kind of plays back to when we're thinking about the Hunger Games and, like, violence as an entertainment factor. It's like, yeah, I want to kick the shit out of my ex-wife. I want to kick the shit out of these kids. I want to kick the shit out of someone. It's like, you need to go to therapy.
Yeah. Because they think that it's shock value.
And it's
just not.
It's like, oh, because, like, at that point, it's like, oh no, another man who wants to commit gratuitous violence.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no.
I'm so shocked.
Yeah.
Oh honey, oh baby. Like, I love you, oh honey, oh baby.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand the need for wanting violence as your
no.
And I guess maybe, like, I don't know, as a student, I was the kid in class that the teacher could rely upon. I was the, in the book club of 100 kids and no one wants to read, I am the student the teacher could rely upon that I did the reading.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wasn't a straight A student, but I got all of my homework done, and I was always participating in class. I really did see myself as, like, the teacher, like, if I'm in my teacher's class, the teacher is probably like, well, at least I'll have one participant.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, I don't know, I feel like...
That's why I hate being cold called, because I would raise my hand if I fucking knew, sir.
Yeah. It's just like, I think part of it, too, is a motif that's going to be throughout this conversation of the concept of all of these like, bad male comics are punching down when, like, if you made a joke that was punching up, it probably it had a lot higher likelihood of landing.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, punching down and punching up is a term in comedy that kind of basically means, like, when you punch down, you are, like, addressing social classes or identities that are in a minority compared to you, and you're doing it in a way that is, like, either demeaning or insulting or generally negative, and it feels out of place because the comic is someone of privilege. They are above them in some sort of social capacity, and so it feels a little cruel to be doing it, right? Like, very privileged men talking about how much they hate their wives feels like you're punching down on women because you are a very privileged man, versus a woman making fun of women, it doesn't feel as incorrect because she is a part of that social group, and people, you are allowed to say what you want about your own social group. You are allowed to represent yourself however you want. That is something that cannot be taken away from you. And then punching up is sort of making fun of things that have more privilege for you. It's why everyone gets away with making fun of Christianity, but you could not get away with making fun of Judaism, because Christianity is a social power that has been pretty much at the top since the Roman Empire. So, like, if they didn't want to be punched up so much, they should, I don't know, go do something that's worthy of being oppressed, like taking care of the poor. Look, there's a lot of Christians who are like, we're being oppressed, and it's like, dude, you have not done anything worthy of being oppressed about. Like if you want to be oppressed as a Christian, you can fundamentally go do that. You just have to do things that are worthy of being oppressed, like taking care of the poor, liking women, taking care of trans people, saying food is a human right. Those things will get you oppressed, but simply being Christian is not.
Yeah.
So that's like, at least that's my understanding of punching up versus punching down.
Mm-hmm. No, it's...
So, like, Matt Rife making fun of women feels like a punch down.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, when it comes to offensive humor, I kind of posit the line between being funny or harmful is characterized by intention and timing.
Mm-hmm.
And like when you go on stage to tell the joke, are you laughing at the group you're making fun of, or are you laughing with the group you're making fun of? And there's a big distinction because, you can always have good humor and humor in good faith where you are laughing with the group. And then there is humor where you are clearly laughing at someone.
Mm-hmm.
And most people, the thing that gives most people anxiety is being laughed at. Right? That's a lot of where my anxiety comes from. And, like, in my lukewarm defense of, like, Grandmaster Chin, which he debunks himself, is that I think he worked very successfully into, like, the female space as, like, a safe man and a safe male comedian, and women felt comfortable around him to such a degree that, like, doing routines about women as a general concept would have garnered a positive reaction because he had worked very hard to build a healthy relationship with a female sphere, that he could get away with jokes about women. But, like, the story that he told that sparked controversy was about a stranger in a public place, and he's like, it was about this waitress with a black eye, and he didn't even know this waitress. And so it's very much, you cannot be laughing with this waitress. You can only be laughing at her.
Mm-hmm.
And the joke is that women get beat if they don't women get beat if they can't cook. That's the joke. And you might be thinking, that's not a joke. Welcome to our problem.
Yeah.
It's not funny to me because he has no idea why that woman has a black eye.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could have told any story, any other story about how someone got a black eye, and you went with that one. And it's not funny because he invaded her personal space and made something up about her. And it's not funny because it's offensive. It's just harassment at that point. Like, there is nothing funny about it because it's just a random woman.
Yeah.
And what happens if that was a birthmark? Could you imagine? Right?
Yeah.
Like, and like, imagine that waitress just like, that is her mark on the internet, is the waitress with the black eye who served Matt Rife. That's your legacy. I would be so embarrassed if I could sue, if she could win a defamation trial. I'd be like, sue that man for every penny he has.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it'd be defamation. I don't know what she'd sue him for, but she should sue him because this was just stupid.
Yeah.
I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I feel like a lot of it's already been said on social media, but it is just so...
Yeah.
It's so disheartening to see somebody who built his entire audience to be women, for him to just immediately turn his back once he gained a larger platform.
Yeah. Because he wanted to be a comedian for the boys.
Yeah, but like, what does
that mean?
What does that mean other than you're just like being offensive? And like, oh, what? Women are more perceptive to like what is offensive, so they're not gonna find it funny?
Yeah.
Like, sorry.
Like when he says, I just want to be a comic for the male audience," it's like you just want to make fun of women. You just hate women.
Yeah.
And you want to hate women without consequences.
And like it feels really gross when you go and look back at his old stuff, because he's just like, at these clubs doing crowd work, like openly flirting with these women. He's not now we all know he's not a safe person to be around.
Yeah, so it recontextualizes all of those moments as something as insidious, even if it wasn't. Right? Like, even if it wasn't insidious at that time, that coloration is never going away now because of what he has done. When I think of Matt Rife and his failures, I always think of, like, in comparison, I think of, like, Daniel Sloss and Bo Burnham, who are other male comedians that are sort of marked safe by women. And, like, both of those comedians also do dark comedy, and they make fun of demographics they don't belong to. But, like, Daniel Sloss and Bo Burnham are very introspective about themselves, and they aren't perfect, and they recognize the mistakes of who they were, and they're not necessarily afraid of those mistakes. Like, people can't be perfect, and for celebrities, like famous people, performers, they're all held to a higher standard because they're famous. Like, we expect them to be fonts of moral purity in exchange for their fame. You are famous, therefore you have to be a bastion of moral purity. If you are not, you don't deserve to be famous. I don't know why that's the dynamic we chose, because that is such an impossible standard, and you wonder why half of Hollywood is fucked up.
Yeah.
And it might be because we hold them to this very weird, morally pure standard that they're never gonna meet because they're not perfect. But, like, Matt Rife is afraid of his mistakes, and Matt Rife is never going to admit to these mistakes because he doesn't think he made a mistake. That is the thing. Matt Rife doesn't think he did anything wrong. And he's not sorry because he feels any empathy. He's sorry because he got caught. And, like, that's the difference. Like, that Bo Burnham is gonna be a household name for decades to come, and no one is gonna remember who Matt Rife is unless he pulls another stunt that lands him in controversy. At this point, the only way he will ever claim fame ever again is if he continues to be offensive and controversial. Like, that is the path of his career. And, like, that's like the thing with celebrities, and they're not apologies. They're not sorry because they recognized a mistake. It's because they got caught. And, like, it just... I recently read this book called The Hive. It's like this female feminine revenge thriller. It's not a great read. I rated it 2 stars. I still think everyone should go read it anyways, though. Like, but, like, when the main character's getting her, like, feminine revenge on the dude she's getting revenge on, like, the dude is like, I made a mistake, and I realize mothers need to be with their children and all this kind of stuff. And she's like, you only see it because I have a gun to your head. That is this energy that I feel with Matt Ray. It's like, yeah, sure, you recognize mistakes because everyone pulled out their Glocks.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate it. It also just feels like a betrayal, because, like, I liked Matt Rife, and I thought he was, like, a safe man. Look at me getting duped by another man.
Does that bring us to Joe Coy, then?
I think so. Is there any other things that we want to say about Mr. Rife with Drama? Oh, there was I guess we should mention this. I didn't put it in my notes. There is, like, the thing going around that he had, like, beef with a 6-year-old. That is technically true. However, that mom set that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, that 6-year-old doesn't have access to TikTok. And like, that 6-year-old doesn't have access to TikTok, which means that the mom would have had to have shown him the Matt Rife stuff. And maybe the 6-year-old organically said that stuff and then she filmed it. But, like, all of that 6-year-old media's access is through his parents. So everything was set up by the parents. So, like, Matt Rife's response to this 6-year-old, still horrendous.
Yeah, still stupid.
Where he was like, your mom pays for your stuff on OnlyFans. Like, that is just absolutely uncouth. It's what are you even doing at that point? But I hesitate to say that he beefed with a 6-year-old, given the fact that like it is that could not have happened organically. With a 6-year-old, it couldn't have.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess the other thing I can personally say is fuck you, Matt Rife, for like your non-apology linking to helmets for people with special like needs. Fuck you.
What a terrible.
And fuck everything you believe in, you garbage man.
What a terrible and old joke.
You wanna know what I'm
Not joke that is.
Right, you wanna know what I'm gonna do, Matt Rife? I'm gonna have Emily drive me to my mother's house. I'm going to introduce her, Emily, to my little brother with Down syndrome. And I am going to make my little brother with Down syndrome watch your entire fucking special. And we're gonna see how many minutes it takes before he hands me another movie. Because your comics is garbage, because your personality is garbage. And fuck you for, like, calling people stupid and making fun of, people with disabilities. Go fuck yourself. Now we can talk about Joey Coy.
Period. That's right.
I get, you wanna know, no, I'm still on this. Before my mom sent me to school, so I'm 5 years old, right? My mom taught me the word retard, taught me what it means, taught me what it means in a medical sense. When my little brother was born, part of his medical diagnosis was mental retardation. My mom says when you're around doctors was that you might hear this term, that's what it means. This is how, if you hear it among your classmates, and they're not talking about it in a purely medical sense, this is what it means. This is what they're saying. This is what they're insulting. And it is your job to tell them to shut the fuck up. Because there is nothing more, like, barbaric and inhumane than insulting a population of individuals who may not know that they're being insulted and will not defend themselves because they don't understand. So, like, Matt Rife doing this, I'm just, like, so much rage fills my soul, because it's like, how fucking dare you? Like, of all the groups that you want to make fun of all the slights that you want to make, like, most people with intellectual disabilities will understand that they're being insulted, but because there is more than 0% of people who will not, that is one person too many. If there's one person who won't understand that they're being insulted, that's one too many, and that one person is my little brother.
Yes.
So it fills me with rage. I've gotten sent to the principal's office because of stuff like this. All of my siblings have been sent to the principal's office because of things like this. I once threatened to slap a kid in the middle of class because he kept saying that I called another student a retard, and I was like, no, Sydney, I would never use that word. My brother is a disability. I didn't say that, Ryan. Can you please stop saying it? And he didn't, and he kept saying it over and over again, and I stood up, and I was like, Sydney, you say that word one more time, I will fucking slap you. we take... Okay, let's talk about Joe Coy. Before I just continue to rant about how much I hate people who use the R slur and who use the who just do all of that. Who just do all of that. Koi fish, Mr. Koi.
Oh God.
Oh.
What a predicament.
He blamed the writers, that poor intern that didn't get paid.
Yeah. I had 10 days to write this with a full team of writers, and I still fucking sucked. Right?
Like, okay. So I actually went on a journey. I put him into the YouTube search algorithm, and I looked for the most offensive headline bit, right? Because I just wanted to see how he would handle something that sounded offensive to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found this bit where he is like, this is how you can tell different Asian people apart by their accents. And I was like, that sounds offensive. Let's watch that. And it was like genuinely good and genuinely funny. So when I watched it, I was like, okay, I understand why he is hosted the Golden Globes. He when he's talking about these accents, he is there's no demeanment. There's nothing about intelligence. There's nothing about not being able to understand them or anything like that. It's silly things like Koreans sound like ghosts and Japanese women sound like they're 12. Like, you can tell if you go watch this bit on YouTube that there was a lot of research and a lot of love that went into that bit. And the most important part, the group that he's making fun of thinks it's funny. That's the most important part.
Well, yeah, and he is also a part of it.
I would assume.
Yeah, he's Filipino.
Okay.
For transparency's sake on the pod.
Okay. Yeah. If you have no idea what this man looks like, that's what he.
Yeah.
So I was like, it's funny, it's good, it's nice. I didn't even know he was Filipino. Like he I think he's a little white passing. I don't know. He looks like a very tanned white person to me. So, even though, I had misrepresented who he was, I still found it funny. He still got away with it because there was so much light and love in, what he was doing.
There was none of that at the Golden Globes.
No! Which is, surprising. Where I was like, well, you did so good in these, comedy bits. Yeah. Why did you fail so hard?
So... I did end up rewriting some of these bits. If you would like, a listen.
Let me hear this.
Okay. So the first one that I redid was his Taylor Swift bit.
Yeah.
So for context, his Taylor Swift bit was just digging at the fact that the NFL likes to cut to Taylor Swift a lot to get views. Okay? The one that I don't like as much is Taylor Swift is in the crowd tonight for her Eras Tour movie, a serious smash at the box office and stadiums around the globe. The NFL could never. She runs miles. I'm sorry. Yards ahead. is the one that I didn't like as much. The one that I like better is the main difference between the Golden Globes and the NFL is that we don't have to beg viewers via Taylor Swift. Her audience is already here, scouring every frame for Easter eggs for the next Taylor's version announcement.
When I saw him do that Taylor Swift clip, I was like, if that were me, I'd be like, the NFL keeps panning to Taylor Swift and people think they're doing it too much, so we're gonna do a Taylor Swift counter and we're gonna beat the NFL's record. We're gonna have more cuts. We're gonna have the Guinness World Record of having Taylor Swift cuts.
Yeah. Oh, and just to reiterate what the internet has already been saying, but Taylor Swift's reaction to that joke was so incredibly mild, it might as well have been sour cream.
Yeah.
When last year we literally had Will Smith slap the shit out of Chris Rock.
Right?
What the fuck?
I mean, Chris Rock did deserve it, but again, another unfunny male comic punching down on a woman's alopecia.
Yeah.
Go fuck yourself. No wonder why you're short. God cursed you for a reason, and we are seeing that come into fruition. You were born, and God is like, one day you will make fun of a woman, so preemptively you will be short for the rest of your life.
The other bits I wrote, I feel like work more so because I'm writing from the perspective of a woman. If a man said this, I don't know if it would work the same.
Yeah.
But, however, here are my submissions. So, this is his joke about the Barbie movie and Oppenheimer.
Oh, I have a...
So, this is the infamous one. He makes fun of Barbie having big boobs.
Yeah.
I wrote, in July we had two of the biggest movies of the year released on the same day. It became a cultural phenomenon to watch them both in one sitting at theaters. It was truly a celebration of cinema. One movie really taught me about the human condition and my place in the world, and really spoke to my soul. The other makes me super tense at the fact that Cillian Murphy and RDJ are sitting at the same table right now. The other one I wrote was Oppenheimer is a biopic of Robert J. Oppenheimer, and Barbie is a biopic of an iconic feminist figurehead. Both taught me one thing. Never leave men in a room together to help make them learn new things. It doesn't end well.
Here is my thing about. First of all, those were great.
Thank you.
Barbie and Oppenheimer, right? Because he's like, Oppenheimer is this epic saga, and Barbie is a movie about a girl with big boobs. If you're going to say that one of these movies is about boobs, between Oppenheimer and Barbie, only one of these movies features a set of tits.
And it's not Barbie.
And it's not Barbie. There is only one of these movies uses female sexuality as a plot point. It's not Barbie. Only one of these movies reduces women to nothing more as whores. It's not Barbie. The booby movie is not Barbie. It is absolutely Oppenheimer.
100%.
Without question. And it's even funnier that Josh Peck is there because in the Drake and Josh sitcom, Megan always calls them a pair of boobs. So there's two. So all of the boobs are actually in Oppenheimer. There is not a single titty.
Oh my god, that's so funny. It just is like, I don't know. I also let me get on my little pedestal here regarding Oppenheimer. I understand why Robert J. Oppenheimer is an important figure in American history.
Yes.
I understand that. I am still trying to figure out why we have decided to idolize Robert J. Oppenheimer and why this movie has continued to idolize Robert J. Oppenheimer when he literally built the atomic bomb, a war weapon that literally decimates cities.
Yeah.
And literally, like, is the root of a lot of major conflicts in the modern world.
Yeah.
I will stand on this pedestal to the day I fucking die. Watching Oppenheimer, they did not give that man enough demons for the amount of lives that he has cost.
No.
He stepped into one papier-mâché skull, and that was it.
Yeah. I think, and honestly, I don't know, the vibe of, even like with the vibe of Robert J. Oppenheimer, is like, he definitely feels like a dude who regrets the role he played in society, just based on the film itself.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't think the film captured that enough about the regret. Because it kind of became about Robert Downey Jr.'s character, like, trying to, like, get him barred or whatever that whole part was. And, like, we took this turn about being about narcissism and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this movie had a chance to make a very cathartic turn because, like, the whole point, right, of us building the atomic bomb initially was that Nazis were also doing it. So, like, we had to do it before the Nazis did it just in case they did it and we would be decimated. That was the original race. And then the Nazis were destroyed and we kept going because then it was like, well, then Russia's gonna build it faster than we are, or Japan is, and then suddenly you realize that it was never about the Nazis are gonna build it first. It was always about we want to build it first.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's a chance to give us a really cathartic turn of events of like then like the sort of guilt that comes with building these bombs. But I think you're right, it didn't hit enough, which is surprising. Because Mr. Nolan gave us a 3-hour film with no intermission.
Mm-hmm.
And you couldn't even capture his guilt.
Yeah.
And he also,
yeah.
and you know, I'm not a fan of like the women in the movie are definitely represented poorly, but that is not because Christopher Nolan is a bad person. It is because Oppenheimer was a womanizer. So like the representation of women was never going to be great because this is from Oppenheimer's perspective. He wasn't a womanizer enough. I did not believe that that man was a womanizer. He had absolutely no riz.
No.
I was like not buying it. Not buying it at all. Also, there are also factual inaccuracies in Oppenheimer that his like descendants are really mad about. Like the scene where Oppenheimer like tries to kill his professor by like putting poison in the apple. That is a myth that never happened, and so like his like grandson or whatever is really mad that that was in the film.
Oh.
So like, you know, as much as Christopher Nolan, you know, did this adaptation, clearly he did not take the time to really evaluate, because I believe American Prometheus, that is not an autobiography, correct? That is just a biography.
Yeah.
So like you're not taking consideration into the bias that is the biographer, right? You know, when you are writing a biography, you have to take into consideration who's writing it. And this is important for a lot of texts that are written about people that are not themselves. So like in Greek mythology, a lot of stories where like Athena is the bad guy, they're written by people who just kind of hate Athena. So like how much stock do you put in those versions of those stories when they are just written by people who just hate that woman? How much of that are you supposed to believe? You have to understand when things are written by people that things are going to get lost, things are going to get dramatized, right? And you can't trust a biography to be accurate 100% of the way. There might be some dramatizations. You want it to be as accurate as possible, but like some people just dramatize things to make it more interesting. It's the one thing you learn in creative nonfiction that has ruined my ability to watch documentaries and anything nonfiction where I'm like, how accurate is this? There are some things that I believe, like, you know, there are some authors that have such a desire for authenticity that I trust them more. I trust Jeanette McCurdy's autobiography more than Paris Hilton's. You know what I mean? Because I feel like there are things that Paris Hilton definitely does not want to talk about. Like, I don't think Paris Hilton wants to talk about her history with homophobia, right? I don't,
Yeah.
you know, if Jeanette McCurdy had a history with homophobia, I don't think she would be afraid to talk about it. Because she's very open about like Mormonism and her eating disorders and things like that. Like, there's like levels of honesty between like biographies and autobiographies, but especially when it is about a biography, be careful. And if it's a biography about someone who was dead when the biography was written, I don't know if Robert J. Oppenheimer was dead when Prometheus came out.
He might have been.
Trust those even less. Because you cannot psychoanalyze a dead person and you cannot fact check with a dead person. So, like, you have to be super duper skeptical. Which is, like, why when Oppenheimer came out, I was like, yeah, but this is gonna be like an Argo situation, isn't it? Where it's not gonna be as...
We also, I just looked it up, we do keep on mixing up where the J goes.
It's Robert J. Oppenheimer.
It's J. Robert Oppenheimer.
So I've been saying it correctly, and then I've been autocorrect. Okay.
And then I corrected myself too. So sorry, J. Robert Oppenheimer. But yeah, no, the American Prometheus was released in 2005. J. Robert Oppenheimer died in 1967.
Yeah, so trust that even less, because Oppenheimer was dead, and you cannot fact check with a dead person, and you cannot psychoanalyze a dead person. That is something I learned in my Goddesses to Witches class when we were like evaluating stuff. I think we were talking about Freud, and we were also talking about potential mental illnesses of people who are dead. And she was like, you cannot say for sure if like Joan of Arc had schizophrenia, and the voices she was hearing was not Saint Christine, but in fact, other voices. um you cannot verify and say that it is true because she is dead and nobody asked her when she was alive.
Mm-hmm.
And you can make guesses based on what information we have, but you will never have 100% certainty because you cannot evaluate the person as a living breathing human. So you have to accept that there is some skepticism and some inaccuracies. That is also why no one can say for sure like what was wrong with Vincent van Gogh because he was dead before anyone was really genuinely looking at him in terms of mental illness. There are some doctors who had some guesses. I don't actually know if he saw doctors now that I think about it. But like when I was doing like a creative nonfiction piece that involved Van Gogh, I was like, the long list of things that historians think Vincent van Gogh has, it's every disease, every mental disorder you could possibly think of. Someone has suggested Vincent van Gogh has said it. Mm-hmm. And we're never going to know exactly what was wrong with Vincent van Gogh because he's dead and nobody asked him when he was alive. So like be skeptical, be skeptical, be skeptical. That is my one thing about when it comes to like accuracy and nonfiction things and things being sold to us as entertainment, which Oppenheimer is being sold to us as entertainment, is that they will stretch the truth for an entertaining story. They will sacrifice truth on an altar of entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Like they do in the Hunger Games. The last thing I want to talk about, as we're talking about unfunny men who cannot get away with making fun of women, I want to talk about Bo Burnham's White Women's Instagram real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So, one, I think these men saw White Women's Instagram and thought that they could replicate it. That is my conspiracy theory. I have no evidence for this, but that is just because you see White Woman's Instagram and, my experience when it came out is there was a small portion that were upset that a man is critiquing a woman, but a large majority of white women were just like showing off their Instagrams and how it is exactly like what Bo Burnham is singing about.
Yeah.
And that tells you that Bo Burnham did research in a way that Joe Coy did not for the Barbie movie. I don't think Joe Coy watched the Barbie movie.
No, I don't think so.
Because, I mean, if he did, then he would have more to say about it than it's girls with boobs.
Yeah.
I once saw this on someone on TikTok say that some male comics just say white women instead of women to get away with misogynistic jokes. And once you're good at spotting it, guys, you will never be the same. I'm going to teach you how, okay? So, if a man's joke is basically white women can't cook, for example, that is veiled misogyny. Even though the humor sounds correct, right? Like if someone is making a joke, oh, white woman can't cook. Like that almost sounds correct, and it's not correct because of the word woman. It's correct because of the word white. White people are stereotyped to be the demographic that cannot cook, not specifically white women. So like, you just saying white women can't cook, you just want to say women can't cook. But because white women are often a demographic that you can punch up, you can hide behind that in order to get away with your sort of misogynistic jokes. Like, and the white people can't cook sort of, like, humor is typically made in, like, good faith. Like, we're laughing with white people when we're making fun of, like, beans on toast or fairy bread. But, like, with women can't cook jokes, it's, like, laughing at female incompetence because the whole idea is women belong in the kitchen and they can't even do that. You know what I mean? So, in the case of white women's Instagram, it's like very clear that Bo Burnham has observed and identified categorically what a white woman's Instagram looks like. And, if you're, and here's the thing, when you listen to the song, how do you know that is a white woman's versus like a woman of color's Instagram? And this is my theory. This is our turn into social justice again. Sorry, we're going back. My theory is that the major difference with people of color is that they are expected to be advocates for their identities and their online presence and don't get the luxury of just having an Instagram of cute pictures. when this social obligation is pushed on them,
Mm.
very often by white people, right? I think the movie Freedom Writers captures this like struggle very well. So it's like this black girl, she's in this advanced English class. She's the only black girl in this advanced English class. And the teacher asks her for the black perspective on the book The Color Purple. And her reaction is, I don't fucking know. Why do I have to do it? And it is this frustration of being the having to speak for all black people because she's the only black girl in the class. And that is this the sort of struggle there because people white people don't have that expectation. You would not expect a white person to always have the white perspective. That is just not something that gets said. But that is what I think when we think of how do we know that Bo Burnham's White Woman's Instagram is really about white women and not just a dig on women, because this is the categorical difference between like white people and people of color, is that much like people of color being stuck in this stereotype as the forever foreigner in America where they never seem to belong because white people see them as foreigners, I also think people of color are seen as the forever advocates where no matter what they do, they are seen as an advocate to whatever their identities are. And that white people just assume, like, for example, that every black person has an opinion on, like, the book The Hate U Give, or George Floyd, or Kaepernick, or the civil rights, or slavery, or any of these other things. White people just think that every black person has an opinion on every single thing that has ever happened in black history. And it sets up this expectation that, like, people of color have to know their history in and out, and it is just not the case, and that is way too much to expect on someone because what white person knows their entire history in and out? Name every U.S. president. Name every U.S. president. You can't? Oh, so maybe it isn't that weird that one random Chinese lady you saw in the store cannot name a Chinese emperor. Go fuck yourself.
That's why they teach AP Euro in high schools.
Oh.
So white people can.
Like, it's just... So, that is the categorical difference. That is me trying to sort of... It is kind of off topic, but I want to, like, emphasize that Bo Burnham did do his research. And, like, the other thing that Bo Burnham does with White Woman's Instagram, and Barbie movie also does this, is that the emotional crux of White Woman's Instagram is the bridge where, like, the woman is talking about her, like, parents passing away and, like, struggling to move on. It's almost like he's telling white women, like, you're easy to make fun of, you come from privilege, you're not always politically correct, you can get away with it, but he's still not going to take away your humanity for the sake of the laughter.
Yeah.
That, like, he is still showing them as human and complex creatures, and he is not going to take away a woman's humanity or reduce women to vapid, funny picture-taking ladies and strip that of them in order to get people to laugh. And Barbie does the same thing. We're like, yeah, the Barbies are all kind of, like, white feminists who thinks that like feminism won when we got the right to vote, and they're kind of bimbos and don't really understand intersectionality or any of these things, and it's kind of funny to laugh at because it's like, oh, you're trying to do feminism but it's really not working. And it's funny, but like, you know, with the scene of the Billie Eilish's song, the What Was I Made For, that whole scene, that is like that the bridge in White Woman's Instagram where they are refusing to take away the humanity of women in order to get a laugh. And that is why I think Bo Burnham's White Woman's Instagram succeeds, why Barbie succeeds, and why also Matt Rife and Joe Coy are failing, because they are stripping women of their empathy, of their humanity, of their complexities in order to get people to laugh. The woman at the waitress at the restaurant that he was talking about, that he was like, oh man, if she could cook, man, she wouldn't have gotten that black eye. You can't tell that joke without reducing that woman to being just like a senseless, battered wife. You have made decisions about her that might not necessarily be true. And then, like, you know, when Joe Coy is making his jokes about Barbie, you're just reducing it to something that it is not. And making those jokes about Taylor Swift, you're just like, oh, she's a girl. Ha, that's funny. It's like, why? Dear men, why?
Yeah.
There are some men who get to keep their microphones. Bo Burnham and Daniel Sloss are two of them. Jesse Cox is another one of them.
The Basement Yard.
Jadrian Wooten. That fucking professor.
Yeah.
We love that guy.
We give that man a microphone.
Please give that man a microphone. You see that I sent his Rate My Professor. I found him on Rate My Professor. I wanted to know what he was like. He has a perfect score on Rate My Professor.
That's right.
We are Jadrian Wooten stands. We need to tag him on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Be like, hey man, we're your biggest fans. Two people who have never been to Virginia.
Oh my god.
Do we have any final thoughts about men? I mean...
I have a lot of thoughts about men. I would say none of them are final.
Prove us wrong, men! Prove us wrong!
That's right!
Love women! Treat women with humanity! Make us wrong! Make us eat our own words by showing women empathy and humanity and treating us right. Prove us wrong!
Prove us wrong!
Don't be a pussy! In conclusion, do not tell men that they are offensive when these jokes upset you. Just tell them that they are not funny. We are here to ruin their SEOs.
Yes.
Do not give them marketable words.
Ruin his day.
Ruin his career.
Ruin his life.
Go follow Kyle Prue on TikTok so you can learn ways to piss off men.
Oh, yeah, he's funny.
Yeah, I love Kyle Prue, another man who gets to keep his microphone.
Alrighty. This has been the Feminine Bite. This has been Emily and Aaron. Ruin a man's day.
Ruin a man's day. We will see you soon with a topic.
Well, we have one.